Well, this is a surprisingly full house for a rookie track speech. This is quite a surreal experience for me because last year I was still a drama teacher, so this is an additionally surreal experience. So currently I'm a SOC analyst and threat hunter at Alert Logic, and I'm going to talk to you about threat hunting and analysing wrong articles. So if we go into our agenda, and I'm going to do the God-awful thing whenever anyone delivers a presentation, and read some of it from here because it may surprise you kind of time, a bit nervous right now. So the cybersecurity landscape is in a constant state of flux, with cyber adversaries increasingly employing increasingly sophisticated attacks to compromise systems and data. Threat hunting has emerged as a proactive and essential practice for identifying and mitigating cybersecurity risks. So this paper is a high-level look at the threat hunt process, aimed at those new to threat hunting and for professionals in other areas of cyber, so that they can better understand how that process works and ways many such incidents that arise from the threat hunt process are based on historical data that falls outside of the SLA of MBR teams. The main focus of this paper is the transformation of publicly available articles and reports into actionable indicators of compromise. It explores the key stages of the threat hunt, from initial article analysis to the deployment of IOCs within security operations. So by dissecting the anatomy of the threat hunt, this paper aims to provide cybersecurity professionals with insights and strategies for both enhancing their own threat hunting capabilities and responding to the results of these hunts, showcasing how threat hunting bridges the gap between threat intelligence and practical cybersecurity developments. Before I dive into this, though, I do want to give a brief overview of the threat hunt as a whole, as it's important to see this presentation as part of the wider whole of the threat hunt process. So there are many different types of hunts. First of all, we've got the malware hunt. So malware remains a consistent threat to organisations. In this type of hunt, we focus on identifying traces of malware within the network and endpoints. This involves scrutinising suspicious files, processes, and network traffic patterns to uncover indicators of compromise. By proactively seeking out malware, we can eradicate it before it causes significant damage. We also have the anomaly detection hunt. So anomalies in a network and user behaviour can be indicative of security breaches. So this hunt involves monitoring and analysing logs and traffic patterns to identify deviations from standard baselines. Then, of course, we've got the insider threat hunt. Insider threats, whether intentional or unintentional, pose a significant risk. In this type of hunt, we focus on identifying suspicious activities or data exfiltration attempts by employees or third-party contractors. And we do this by monitoring privileged user actions and unusual data access patterns. Then we have the external threat hunt. Yes, there are a few of these. So external threat actors such as hackers and nation states are a constant concern. This type of hunt involves monitoring external attack surfaces such as websites, email servers and cloud services for signs of malicious activity. By identifying and blocking malicious traffic at the perimeter, we can prevent many threats from penetrating our network. And much of this work is done by the SOC team, so there are some of you out here that may be familiar with this process. Then there's the data exfiltration hunt. Data breaches are a major concern, so we conduct hunts specifically focused on data exfiltration attempts by monitoring outbound network traffic. And this brings us on to the subject of today, the zero-day vulnerability hunt. So, zero-day vulnerabilities are a nightmare for organisations, as there are no known fixes or patches. In this hunt, we keep a close eye on emerging threats and vulnerabilities through threat intelligence feeds and forums. By actively seeking out potential zero-day threats, we can develop countermeasures or workarounds before exploits become widespread. This is the type of hunt that we will be exploring today, as for many companies, their first knowledge of a zero-day event is either because they are a target or an article has been published to let the wider community know. So I probably should move on to that with the last one. You can tell that I am very, very new to this. Okay. So each type of hunt requires a unique set of skills, tools and methodologies, because let's face it, the use of MISP is a threat hunting presentation all of its own. So our goal as threat hunters is to remain proactive and continuously adapt to evolving threats. Collaboration both within the team and the wider community is essential to working effectively. Contrary to popular opinion, threat hunters aren't lone wolves, diving down technical rabbit holes. Well, okay, the rabbit holes are definitely a real thing, but it is very much a team effort. So, curating your sources. So, in the initial phase of the threat hunt, the focus should be on identifying relevant sources of information, and some of you will probably recognise some of those new sources there. Then carefully analysing publicly available sources and reports that might contain clues about emerging threats or vulnerabilities. Extracting key information is a critical step here, as it lays the foundation for creating IOCs. During this phase, it's essential to validate the source's credibility to ensure that the information is reliable and relevant. The sheer number of sources available online is pretty overwhelming, to put it mildly. When you first start threat hunting, you do get a bit overexcited. I know I certainly did. And the temptation to just Google cybersecurity and X is pretty high. But before you know it, you're sifting through reams of historical articles that the algorithms place at the top. Pretty quickly, you realise this is not the ideal way to be doing these things. You might have learned a lot about an obscure attack, but you haven't found anything useful to create a hypothesis or generate a hunt. You may already have a couple of go-to favourite cybersecurity news outlets, some of them might be featured on this board, which you're already setting up to ping on your phone to let you know when something new happens. Now that's a really good start with keeping up to date with things, but what about Twitter and other ways of getting the current information before it's even come out in an article? How do you keep up with those? So first of all, let me just say that I am not being sponsored by Feedly, nor do I work for them, but it is a powerful tool that can be harnessed for threat hunting, as it's a really efficient way to stay updated on the latest threats and vulnerabilities. By curating a customised feed of cybersecurity news, blogs and RSS feeds within Feedly, you can create a centralised hub of real-time information. This way, you can monitor emerging threats, zero-day vulnerabilities and hacker tactics employed across various platforms and sources. The ability to organise and categorise these feeds means you can quickly identify patterns, trends, and malicious activities in the digital landscape. If you're working for a large company, Feedly's collaboration features enable threat hunters to collaborate with their teams, sharing relevant articles, research, and insights to enhance their collective threat intelligence and response capabilities. Also, one of their newer features on the enterprise side is Feedly's integration capabilities, which can integrate with various threat intelligence platforms and tools and make it a really powerful tool. You can even integrate it into your SIEM systems. It streamlines the flow of information, which increases speed and accuracy. We've recently been trialling this capability with Kibana and found that having the articles embedded in our processes and our dashes can be actually really, really useful. If you find an article that's created some dashes on Kibana, you can set that up. When you shift change over to a US team, they know exactly what you've read, what the ISCs are that you've picked up from that, and they can work from there. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how to find articles, how to order this. But what do you do when you actually find that article? So, forming a hypothesis. So, once relevant articles and reports are identified, we need to delve deeper by correlating the information across multiple sources. This involves expanding on the initial IOCs and contextualising the threats. The goal is to paint a comprehensive picture of the potential threat. Not only the indicators, but also the tactics, techniques, and procedures employed by the adversaries. So, without further ado, I'm going to go through this process with a very well-known zero-day event. Pretty much everybody in this room will have heard of the MoveIt software breach. If you haven't, where have you been? Certainly, it was a day that threat hunters globally will remember. Any widely used tool that's been compromised will affect a multitude of customers. And in an MDR, the response needs to be coordinated and swift. So for us, it began with this article. And one of my colleagues posting the link to one of our customers saying, shit, is this what I think it is? So if we actually just look at the article itself, this is an example of a fantastic article to begin a threat hunt process. So props to Lawrence Abrams for this. Because in this article, not only do we have a number of indicators, IPs, but we also have the process that it follows. We already have a starting point just from this one article. But of course, you can't base a threat hunt from one article. Lawrence Abrams might have had a beef with Progress. Who knows? Could have been having a bad day. You've got to look into it. Now, we were quite lucky in this case because Progress were really, really quick off the mark when it came to releasing information about this particular vulnerability. So they actually enabled us to gain all of these. This is not the exhaustive list of their IOCs from their website because there wasn't enough space on PowerPoint, and let's face it, none of you are going to read everything on here. But this gave us an absolutely fantastic starting point, and you start to notice that there are some common aspects of some of the indicators. Because I've done this in purple, those of you at the back probably can't see this. So the most important indicator that we had was this human2.asps. So what do you do next? You have your article, you've got your IOCs, you've got thousands of customers if you work in an MDR. So you need to start searching. So our first port of call was actually to go into all of our customers' environments, and we had to run a generalised search on MoveIt because we needed to know which of our customers actually use our software. There's no point doing a threat hunt on every single one of your customers. You need to start narrowing that search down because otherwise it's a waste of time and resources going through all of these things over and over again. So we started with MoveIt. We created a list. It was a long list of all of our customers using MoveIt software. And this is where logging becomes really, really important. For obvious reasons, I can't show you a copy of our actual logs because I don't think my customers will be particularly happy about this. But we, as a team, we needed to log everything because you don't want people duplicating work. If there are search types that aren't working, you need to let your colleagues know. Now, if you're working in a small team for a small company, don't have a huge amount of infrastructure, something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet can do this for you. Put all your customers' names in there, or all of your environments if you're a single business, all of your different environments down there so you can check them one by one. Then you want the name of the threat hunter that is analysing each one of those environments. Then you want another column saying whether or not you have seen the initial indicator. So in this case it was, if I go back, as I said, that human2.asps. So you need to see if it's got that. So we ran that search, and we narrowed our list down a little bit further to our customers who have been compromised. However, we don't know at this point the stage of the compromise. Just because that file is there, it doesn't mean that it's moved on to the next stage of data export. So we needed to start looking into each of those environments even deeper. So yes, the logging got bigger. The Excel spreadsheet got bigger as we went through each and every customer, finding out how much information is there. And you need to be quick and you need to be organised because this was still the 1st of July. The clock ransomware notice came out on the 7th. Not July, June, sorry, I didn't know what month of the year it was, but it was a very, very long week. But letting our customers know as quickly as possible, especially those that haven't received any data expert at that point, meant that we could send them the remediation because Progress already had a patch in place. We could send them remediation recommendations, we could let them know what was going on, we could let them know what they needed to protect, we could let them know to prepare their incident response teams. And yes, we were waking them up at 3 o'clock in the morning in some cases to let them know. Which brings me, hopefully, very neatly on to determining criticality in raising potential IOCs. Because not every one of these threat hunts is going to be a move-it. If you see data exfiltration in a customer's environment, of course, you wake them up at 3 o'clock in the morning. They are not going to appreciate the extra sleep if they find themselves on the ransomware site at breakfast time. On the other hand, if you have a search, such as the most recent FortiGate issue, because let's face it, there's been one or two recently, then some of those vulnerabilities, we didn't even have indicators of compromise with this particular incident. All we could let our customers know was that they may be potentially vulnerable. And do you know what? They don't like being woken up in the middle of the night. We're told they may be potentially vulnerable at some obscure date in the future. So it's really, really important. So as a general rule of thumb, if you are seeing an active breach or data exfil, it's a critical incident, raise it. If you're seeing that they may be potentially vulnerable, try and stick yourself in your customer's shoes. How important is it going to be for that particular customer's business? And then finally, we move into the final stage. Because letting the customer know, raising the incident, that's not the end of the process. Now, I shamelessly stole this from my own company's website, which is why it doesn't have a reference on it. And it's actually, I nicked it from the threat intelligence team as well, so I hope none of them watch this video. So, we've moved from each of these stages. So, in our particular case, because it's a threat hunt, our direction came from our article. We collected further information, and then we processed that information to create our indicators of compromise. We analysed it by going through Klarna and searching everything until our eyes were almost falling out of our heads. Then we disseminated the information, we let all of our customers know that they were at risk. And then we moved to this stage, the feedback stage. Because every active threat hunt forms the basis of analytics of the future. If you just do your threat hunt and then leave it there, you're going to have to do that threat hunt again in the future. But if you do that threat hunt and then you provide all of that data, all of that analysis, and you send that through to both your content creation teams and your research teams and your threat intelligence teams, they can then work together. And in a few weeks' time, your SOC analysts will be analysing those incidents with the information you've provided, and they will be doing that in real time, rather than a threat hunt where we're looking through the client's historical data to find those indicators. Those SOC analysts will be catching it as it happens. And that, ultimately, is the goal of the threat hunt, to improve the analytics of the future. So, does anybody have any questions?
You mentioned logging, and you have a bunch of different customers. I do threat hunting myself. How do you deal with customers who don't have the logs you need, or don't want to onboard them, or do you have centralized logging across all of your?
Oh, that's a naughty question.
Well, it's a headache for me, so some other people deal with it. Oh, I gotta get your phone.
yeah, I know. I've got to choose my words really, really carefully right now. I may maybe discuss it afterwards, potentially. But for the most part, we can only work with what we can see. So if the customers aren't sending those logs through to us, then you're absolutely right. You can't run a threat hunt if it's not there. One of the things that we do as a business, we actually hold regular tuning calls with our customers. So if we're not seeing things, so for example, Diffie Howman or SSL certificates haven't been uploaded and things aren't getting passed correctly, then we have regular meetings with our customers to make sure things are coming through correctly. But by the time we're at the threat hunt process, it's kind of already too late for that. That needs to happen earlier on in the process.
Predict what you might need in the future.
Absolutely. Does that answer?
I think so.
I could probably go into more detail separately. Anybody else? Yes.
So not so much question and conversation, but what you do. That really clear explanation of the entire process. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah. How do you filter out all the noise from the RSS? Some of them generate a lot of noise.
With practice. There are some that I just go, do you know what, I just can't even. So I think gradually you just start to know what's not, and you start to mute those ones until you narrow it down, and you've got your favourites, your favourite kind of go-tos. But I do have a slush pile just in case, because every so often one of those Cracker Wars actually does have a little nugget in it, and one of your colleagues might say, "Well, have you seen this so-and-so?" And you can pull it straight up and such. Yeah, I've seen that. But yeah, it's a really good question, because there is so much that filtering that down it's super, super difficult. So it's working with what you find useful. What you find useful as a threat hunter may be different. We all have our own unique styles with how we go into things and how we research things. So it's about adapting it for the type of articles and the type of feeds that you need to see, the way that your brain works, to create the most useful, actionable intelligence. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Does your surname have any connection to Welsh?
It does, yes. So in my former life, before I was a drama teacher, I was an actor and a storyteller. When I got divorced, I took my equity name, so that was my equity name, and Taliesin, yes, was a Welsh storyteller. So there you go. Anyone got any questions that aren't to do with my name?
Right, shall we have another big round of applause for the amazing Lauren?